President Trump made statements today when interviewed, claiming protesters are spitting on troops.
When they spit at people, they spit. That's their new thing. They spit, and worse, you know what they throw at them, right? And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit.
What's the bar for sending Marines?
The bar is what I think it is.
We live in chaotic times, and the world is crazy right now. I'm sure you're saying that or hearing others say it quite often. But understand that crisis and fear are used to control people. So the chaos happening in the world right now is by design. But are we really asking why?
This was provoked by the White House. The reason why, we don't know. I posit that maybe we are part of a national experiment to determine how far the federal government can go in reaching in and taking over power from a governor, power from a local jurisdiction, and frankly, leaving our city and our citizens, our residents, in fear.
So these protests began in LA, but we're now seeing them spread to more than a dozen cities. And as that plays out, President Trump is defending his decision to federalize the California National Guard.
I'm able to do things now that I wouldn't have been able to do because the previous president and presidency was so bad that anybody looks good. I can be stronger on an attack on Los Angeles.
Yes.
Okay? I think bringing in the National Guard 4 years ago or 8 years ago would have been more difficult.
He said he can do things now that he couldn't do during his first presidency. Well, why is that?
Now to the landmark Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity. Senior national correspondent Terry Moran is at the Supreme Court. And Terry, this is an earth-shaking opinion, huge implications for the presidency and former President Trump.
It sure is, George. Good morning. This is one for the history books. Never before had the Supreme Court decided whether presidents could be prosecuted. And now in this case, they've answered that question by making it much, much harder to hold presidents, including Donald Trump, accountable for their crimes.
It's hard to ignore what's happening. We see riots, terror threats, war, natural disasters, and economic instability. But behind every crisis happening right now, there's a precisely crafted narrative designed to maintain control and cause people to submit to the beast. People will look for an answer, and normally they turn to religion. The major upheavals causing so much despair and confusion will force all the world religions to merge, and there will be one religion imposed upon the entire world. We talked about this in a previous session. The beast wants worship, so he has to create enough chaos for the world to cry out for peace. And that will be an invitation for him to present himself as the one able to make all of the troubles go away, because the false will appear before the one that is true. The deceived will receive him as God, and everything will be under one head. What's the head? The Babylonian system, the head of gold. All of these things happening right now are warnings. They're signs so that the righteous will be prepared for what is coming. I really encourage you to go back and watch the videos uploaded in recent weeks because they all tie together and the messages will help you understand some of these foundational things about this system. I'll leave links in the description. Now let's look at what's happening with the two-party system here in America so that you can see how political leaders are creating intentional divides that will help to bring about the domination of the beast. Because it may seem like the Democrats and Republicans are incapable of working together for the good of the nation, but leaders in the highest positions are selected. Each administration is tasked with introducing an extreme that will move the pendulum towards something even more extreme. The people then become frustrated with it all and begin to express their frustrations through protests or riots because they believe the country's going in the wrong direction. So the Republican Party claim to be fighting for rights and family values, but do little to fight against inequality. They implement policies that will then cause Democrats to push back when they win elections. They then introduce policies that are equally extreme in the opposite direction. Don't you think they know what a woman is, or that it's wrong for someone who is a dude one day and a dudette the next to use women's restrooms in public spaces or compete in women's sports? Of course they do. What about the pushback against immigrants? Well, let's remember that they allowed immigrants to flow in under the Biden administration with very little restrictions, knowing that it would evoke a response. Those things brought about intense anger and frustration on the right, and now they think they're justified for what's happening on the streets of LA. Now we have this administration evoking anger and frustration on the left because it seems that it's destroying equity and social justice. These things create constant confusion. That was the plan. The extremes implemented on both sides represent a system of control that will be used against the people on both sides. Eventually, full rights will be given to the alphabet community to the extent that their behavior will be so extreme it could cause Sodom and Gomorrah to blush. It's in line with the image of the beast. It's a do what thou wilt ideology. You can be one thing one day and something else the next day if it makes you happy. So removing all restrictions on sexual freedom and identity is a must. On the other hand, religion is also necessary because he wants worship. So you cannot have freedom of religion. One will be given to you, and you either submit to it or suffer the consequences. We know that the enemy is the author of confusion. Pause and think on that. Being the author of something is the same as being the creator of it. Chaos is created, and then a solution is offered. Peace. He extends an invitation so that the world will crown him as their Lord and God because he brought an end to the chaos. Right now, people are torn. You have a minority group of Republicans saying this is not what we voted for. Well, actually, you did. You just didn't understand that the system is forcing the nation to choose one extreme or the other. Biden's administration seemed to be void of anything religious. Social extremes were forced upon society in the name of equality and social justice. Now, Trump's administration is giving you religion, but it's an esoteric religion, and along with it comes imperialism and dictatorship that will strip away individual and constitutional rights. Things enacted by both parties will eventually lead to the worship of the beast. The political leaders are puppets, and their puppet masters run the show. They show up, these political leaders, and they say what they're told to say when they're told to say it. They do what they're told to do when they're told to do it. And if they don't, Well, some end up with unexplainable black eyes, bruises, broken bones, or even worse, they're taken out.
When the government does release records that are redacted, it almost leads us to be more interested than we were before the documents were released, because it's that thing, what are they hiding?
It sure does.
What do you think we were able to learn about at least the CIA and some of that spy craft and trade craft, which some would argue, well, this latest release would just be more embarrassing just for how the investigative work was done or how the spy craft was done versus anything that materially changes what we know about the assassination.
Right. It did confirm, these latest documents did confirm that the CIA and the U.S. government not only knew of Lee Harvey Oswald months, if not years, before JFK was assassinated, but that they were tracking him as best they could in the early 1960s. They knew, for instance, that he defected for a time to the Soviet Union and then came back, and that he was in Mexico and he visited the Cuban consulate and the Russian embassy in Mexico City. They knew all these things about him. They monitored threats that he made. They had photos of him with rifles and had conversations quoted by witnesses saying that he was going to kill Kennedy. So he was not just on their radar, he was central on their radar for a very long time.
They're reading.
Clearly, those in positions of power are not immune even today.
Comes after shocking video yesterday showed federal agents putting Democratic Senator Alex Padilla in handcuffs during a news conference led by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Senator Padilla, who works in the building where the briefing was held, interrupted Noem as she discussed the administration's latest work in its immigration crackdown. He was quickly pushed out of the room by federal agents, taken to the ground and placed in handcuffs.
If this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community.
I do think that it merits immediate attention by their colleagues over there, and that they need. I think that behavior at a minimum is it rises to the level of a censure.
Not only does he work in the building where the event was held, he identified himself to them. A message was being sent. And those who are sitting around Bale's table better pay attention and toe the line. We're not in Kansas anymore. Trump, like all the others before him, is carrying out orders. He's supposed to usher in the golden age. We talked about that in the video called The Golden Age and the Golden One. Again, the link will be in the description. But the golden age is supposed to be a time dedicated to celebrating transformation. Remember, he endorsed the plan for a Stargate. It's the $500 billion plan to build artificial intelligence and data centers. Let's remember that his uncle was John Trump, and John Trump was given access to the Tesla documents. Why do you think Musk was there and given access to top secret information and data without having the proper security clearances? The damage has already been done, folks. But other world leaders are moving their countries in the same direction. They're moving them into a collective fifth dimensional consciousness. In other words, you merge with artificial intelligence and become transhuman. This is their response to their low birth rates. So transhumanism will enhance human capabilities through technology. In case you haven't noticed, they're already doing these things. But some of these Christian Zionists are simply clueless about what's happening right now because they're using the wrong people as the time clock. They're celebrating, and some are actually equating Trump's golden age with the 1,000 years of peace. They see this as their time of jubilee. And then you have the nationalists who foolishly believe that Trump is standing up to the cabal or the deep state, particularly as they see what's happening between those who say they are us and Iran. They believe the conflict is fulfilling prophecy that will lead to the building or rebuilding of the third temple, and then it will bring about the return of their God. Well, which God are we really talking about here? So what you're seeing is manufactured chaos plaguing the world right now to bring about the desired end. Again, these things are happening all around the world, not just here in America.
Focus now elsewhere in Europe. 17 police officers were injured in the UK last night as hundreds of rioters attacked police and set fire to homes in Northern Ireland in what is a second straight night of violence. Authorities have described this unrest as, quote, racist thuggery.
The United Kingdom is coming apart at the seams. King's College London professor of war studies David Betts set off alarm bells this year by saying Britain is headed towards civil war, and he advised people living in its large cities to move before the violence starts.
Imagine Northern Ireland scale, or Northern Ireland in intensity, but on a completely national scale. Attacks on public figures, judges, potentially politicians.
London Daily Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley told us he agrees with Betts that Britain is heading for open sectarian conflict, possibly war, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
And his argument is this, that first of all, Britain displays many of the signs of being a failed state, such as economic decline, total loss of trust in the police, and a fractious and increasingly extreme politics.
At the center of this unrest is a government multicultural experiment that has brought in large numbers of Muslims without requiring them to integrate. More continue to arrive daily.
These nations are falling apart at the seams, and it's time for people to start asking why. Of course, we know that the stage is being set for the ultimate showdown, and that's where we come in. Joel 3 is going to be fulfilled one way or another. So it's imperative to ready yourself for what is coming. Yes, we finally stopped running into the streets and giving them a reason to do us harm. But don't just sit on the couch eating popcorn. You need to be in your prayer closet. You need to be studying and allowing the Most High to shape you and mold you into a vessel fit for His use while these folks are going in on each other. World leaders are following their agenda. They are removing certain leaders so that they can replace them with those who will have a role in the kingdom of this last beast. Certain nations will have to be brought down low. I mean, just think about what's being said right now. We attacked you because we don't want you to have certain weapons, but we can have them. Only certain nations can have those weapons. Clearly, you can see who they are. I guess they can have them because they will do the right thing with them, right? Now let's remind ourselves which nation it was that used an atomic bomb on another country. What happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6, 1945? The B-29 bomber called Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, on Hiroshima. Do you see the caption? It says the missile was equal to 20,000 tons of TNT. Well, which civilized nation did that? The United States. They wanted to show off their new powerful weapon so that the rest of the world would fear them. But now they get to dictate who should have these types of weapons and who shouldn't. So apparently this is why Bibi is so upset. They don't want Iran to have those types of weapons. So he's basically saying, well, our state can have it, but you can't. And because you won't let us come in and see what you have so that we can destroy the most powerful ones, we're going to pummel you. And you better just take it and be quiet. And then the United States says, well, we knew that they were going to do it and we tried to talk them out of it. But if you retaliate, we will support them even though they attacked you. Does that even sound rational to you? Depraved minds, folks. But this is how the mind of a colonizer works. So are we at the point where they want to dazzle the world again with the new weapons they created with the help of AI?
And we're very powerful. This country is very powerful. Let me tell you, it's far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody not even close.
General Wesley Clark, Luke Rudowski, WRC. There's one question, if I could just ask you if that's okay. Would that be all right? Sure. There's a speech going around right now on the internet where you talked about the upcoming wars in Syria and Libya and Iraq and Afghanistan, saying that people were telling you this was going to happen.
Came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years.
Is this not depravity? It's a depraved mind. But we've seen this before, haven't we? This isn't our first rodeo, but these other nations are getting their wake-up call. They gonna learn today.
Starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
It's happening now. Is there a follow-up? Is there any information you know or any thoughts on the speech you gave?
No, those were discussions that were being held in the Pentagon a decade ago, reflecting discussions from 1991. And it's a tragedy how it's unfolded.
Seeing it come true, it's unfolding. What does that say to the larger extent of everything?
It says that the United States needs to be a strong force for peace and justice, global cooperation in the world.
Do you have anything else you want to say about that talk or Syria right now?
They should have learned from our experience and the Native Americans. Here's what they do. They band together first. They need to come together under one banner. With us, it was the banner of Christianity. Now it's Christian nationalism. It will be the war cry used to promote their supremacy. Then they're going after the resources so that they can put them on welfare. They'll be forced into submission through brutal attacks, and if they try to fight back, they will create propaganda campaigns so that they can portray them as savage animals. That will give them license to go in and wipe them out, because they can justify it by saying they are no longer human. Isn't that the playbook? Yes. And it will be used to prepare the world for world domination. Let's look at this from Revelation 13:4-9. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Yah, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Now you'll be discouraged if you stopped right there. But keep reading. It says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Did you notice that? Yes, all will worship him except for those whose names are written in the book of life. This says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. So I hope this message has been a blessing to you. Please hit the like and share it. You're also welcome to subscribe if you have not already done so. We normally upload messages on Sunday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Yah willing. Join me next time.